welcome you all today to the AAFLFC podcast. And we have as our very special guest this morning, today, Madame Catherine Loubier, Deleguee Generale du Quebec in New York, who is here to speak with us. Prior to coming to New York, Catherine Loubier served as Deputy Chief of Staff to the Premier of Quebec, leading the transition team for Premier François Legault, elected in October 2018. From 2016 to 2018, Madame Loubier was based in Paris, France, with Renault Nissan Mitsubishi, first as General Manager in the Office of the President, then as Alliance Communication Global Director. The Alliance is a strategic partnership between major automobile manufacturers and employs nearly 475,000 people in 200 countries. From 2013 to 2015, she was Senior Advisor to Canada's 22nd Prime Minister, Stephen Harper. Her mandate was to advise the Prime Minister of Canada on federal-provincial relations with Quebec. This included negotiations with its provincial and municipal governments, associations, and the private sector, notably during negotiations surrounding the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement between Canada and the European Union, and the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. Between 2006 and 2011, Madame Loubier served as Director of Communications and Deputy Chief of Staff to the Minister of Transport, Infrastructure and Communities, and the Minister Prime responsible for Canada Economic Development for Quebec regions. As part of her duties, she managed government funding for major projects in Quebec, as well as dossiers related to the economy, private sector, transportation, infrastructure, and the maritime industry. Madame Loubier worked as Director of Communications in the Office of the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Ottawa from 2008 to 2010. She also supported official visits for the Prime Minister of Canada in 2006, notably for the APEC Summit in Vietnam, the G8 Summit in Russia, and the Francophone Summit in Romania, as well as for bilateral meetings, including with the President of the United States. Between 1996 and 2006, Madame Loubier held positions in the private sector, advising business leaders in the financial, energy, charitable, infrastructure, and entertainment sectors. Some of the organizations and companies she worked for include Superior Propane, Calgary, Hill and Knowlton, Canada, Cavalia, One Drop, the International Financial Center in Montreal, and the Groupe Bourgeois, which helped to attract Ubisoft to Montreal and create the Cité du Multimédia. Catherine Loubier holds a Bachelor of Arts and a Master's degree in Political Science from the Université du Québec à Montréal. Now, what an introduction.
What an introduction. Thank you so much. This is, if you would see me, I would be a little red.
No, we are so honored to have you here today with us. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Please tell us about your mandate at the Quebec Government Office in New York.
Well, again, thank you for having me. This is a priority for me, Francophonie. I'm very proud to be a French-speaking, born in Montreal and representing Quebec, this pocket of French Canadians in the US. And I was appointed in 2019 by the Premier of Quebec, François Legault. And so my mandate comes from him, and as well the International Relations Minister, Nadine Giraud. And our office in New York has been open since 1940, so 81 years. At Rockefeller Center, we have a big presence in this landmark in New York. So there's a little bit of French in the Rockefeller Center since 81 years. But the reason why we opened an office at the time was for trade. And it's still pretty much why we have an extensive 9 offices presence in the US. I'm responsible more particularly for the Mid-Atlantic region, overseeing as well our Washington office with my colleague, Jean-François Hould, who's very active in the Francophonie as well. And my priority, trade investment, really opening doors for our exporters, sometimes, you know, it's not a given for them. They speak French, there's the border, there's a culture that is different on the other side of the border in the US. And so our job is really to help them understand how to do business in the US and give them help to open doors to buyers and so on. Because we export 70% of all of our exports in the world in the US. So that's how important this relationship is. And that's how we were able to create prosperity in Quebec. And it's really taking the image of we're building things together, right, between Canada and the US. And some products can cross the border many times before they're finished. So we're very much integrated in what we call our supply chains. And that's true since the Great War, with aluminum and steel and, you know, even these days, the medical products associated with the COVID, we all realized quickly that, you know, we're building those together as well. And so erecting trade barriers is one thing that I'm working on avoiding. I believe protectionism between Canada and the US is always a lose-lose for businesses and ultimately for consumers. And one of the priorities I pursue is Francophonie, but as also climate change and the environment. And so we want to do our share. It's very important for our government. And lastly, I'd be remiss not to mention our artists and creators, who from an English sometimes, but often from a French point of view, are our best ambassadors. And by connecting artistic communities in the US with Quebec, we've been able to jumpstart business and create really profound and people-to-people links that are productive for us to be able to do business together.
Thank you, Madame. Please tell us about the role of Quebec in the worldwide Francophone community and in the OIF, the Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie.
So Quebec is a committed partner of Francophonie, and we have an extensive network of 33 offices in the world in 18 countries. And so there's a lot of ways that we're participating into the OEF affairs, but also Francophonie as a whole. And I had the chance to discover a lot on the topic, notably that Canada was a founding member of the OIF. And I was able to accompany the Prime Minister in 2006 to Senegal for the Francophonie Summit. And then recently, Premier Legault to the Armenia Francophonie Summit. And so I know that the deepness and the richness of what you can find in the economic space of the Francophonie is absolutely valuable for Quebec. It's a market of about 1.2 billion people, accounting for over 20% of world trade and 16% of the world's wealth. So really the French language is a vehicle for us for economic development and trade. It's an international priority for us. Through the participation in OEF and Francophonie in a broader way, our artists, our education system, you know, exchanges and innovation in health, our athletes, all bound by French language and their own values, make a very big difference. Sometimes on equality, sometimes on human rights, but certainly on a lot of men and women around the world. And our minister, the Minister of International Relations, is also quite active in the Francophonie and the OEF. And I've discovered recently that there's, of course, there's about 9 million Francophones in Canada, but there's about 11 million in the US. And so that is certainly, if we don't connect with these Francophones, it's untapped potential on all fronts that I've just listed. And also, you know, for us to deliver on the objective the Premier gave us.
Thank you, Madame Loubier. Can you tell us about some of the priorities of the Francophonie in this year, 2021?
Yes, so last November, I was mentioning our minister, Nadine Giraud, Minister of International Relations, Francophonie. She participated virtually in the 37th session of Francophonie Ministerial Conference. And that was a very dear project to Quebec. There is a new strategy around Francophonie économique, the economic strategy for Francophonie. It was adopted during that session. And it enables the development of a framework, I would say, to strengthen and stimulate trade and innovation, and also entrepreneurship among young people and women. And we have within the government of Quebec, by the way, funding that is directed to our entrepreneurs to be able to go in other countries of La Francophonie to connect and develop their business. So we're also triggering this with financial support. And as Vice President and Interim President of the Commission économique de l'OIF, the Economic Commission of OIF, will continue to mobilize and implement this strategy. This is really at the heart of the mandate that the Premier has given to all his cabinet ministers. And lastly, digital Francophonie is very important. The promotion of French language is a priority, of course, for our government, and it's necessary to see efforts in the digital world, because it's an area of vitality for French, and also an area where the younger generation is very active.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Can you tell us a little bit about your involvement and your contribution to French language education in the New York area?
Well, New York is so vibrant, so diverse, so full of cultures and languages and a mix of culture. And we believe that young people should be prepared to succeed in a multilingual world. And so what we bring to the table is we support organizations such as the American Association of Teachers of French, Education in French New York, and French Heritage Language Program. So sometimes there's an exchange between teachers, but we also donate books. We connect peers in Quebec and in New York and in the US. We organize training and special events, and sometimes add artists and authors to this. And we also offer services and resources to organizations such as Alliance Française and French Heritage Language Program, whose mission is to provide French language enrichment programs to students and adults. And so that allows French-speaking New Yorkers to continue to speak French and enhance their comprehension of French in many ways.
Merci, Madame. How is the Quebec government office in New York observing and marking the Mois de la Francophonie in New York?
So we have a lot of activities. We're very active on social media, of course. We talk amongst peers of La Francophonie. We will participate in a few weeks to a literary festival with French-speaking authors from around the world. It's organized by OIF and New York University. And we're going to be presenting a Quebec movie in collaboration with the Old Dominion University and NYU, and also a Francophonie job fair and panel on higher education that we're organizing with the French Embassy. And I just want to mention the Washington office in our network is very active as well. There's a lot of Francophone. Usually this time of the year, I would be in Washington with the Francophonie ambassadors. It's a wonderful meeting every year. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there this year, but there's a series of Québécois shorts on the sofa, which offers weekly selection of short films to watch. There's also a partnership with the Library of Congress for a concert and poetry nights, and so cooking classes with a Québécois chef. So we try to innovate and find many ways of getting together to celebrate the French language.
That all sounds really wonderful. I'd like to thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. Are there any additional thoughts that you'd like to share with us before we have to go?
Well, I think, my message to families who have youth that has been immersed in French, learn French, or native French and want to keep speaking it, throw books and magazines around the house in French. I learned my English through the Reader's Digest and Time magazine. I grew up, born in Montreal, grew up in an all-French family on both sides of my family. But I picked up the Time magazine almost every week, and I was excited when it arrived because it was a window on the world. And I tried to understand the articles, and it took me a long time. Sometimes I had to read them 4 or 5 times. But I think that's how I learned my English in the first place. And I think, subscribing to TV5, TV5, is a good idea. What a wonderful window in the world of francophonie. It's an absolutely stellar TV channel, TV5 Monde, which is partly funded through OEF and Francophonie. Very high quality, very good content in French. Why not expose your youth to French-speaking programming? It's done in a different way with a different angle. And that's what makes a nation, its culture, its language, and its history. And I think we will always gain from diversity, because from diversity comes creation and innovations. And so I would encourage everyone to pick up. I know a lot of parents do send their kids in French schools, and I think that's wonderful. And they're never going to regret opening their kids' mind to another language that is so beautiful.
That's really inspirational thoughts. Thank you so much. Merci infiniment, Madame Loubier.
Merci à vous, Kathleen, for everything you do, pour tout ce que vous faites.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That means such a lot coming from you. Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us today for the AAFLFC podcast. À la prochaine.
À la prochaine. Au revoir.